Hi. I say hi and then realize that I need to plug my computer in. I'm Laura Stone. I'm the chaplain at Timbercrest, and this is Grief Support Group. This group, what we do is take some time to kind of acknowledge the grief journey in the midst of all of the everything else, especially this time of year. It can feel like, although grief, if you're walking through it, is something that's always with you, it can feel like those things get kind of pushed to the edges, or maybe it can feel like they're just overwhelming and in the midst of everything. And so this is a time for us to sort of acknowledge, take stock, be together. Maybe glean a few insights. Grief is different for each person, and even within each person, each grief is different, and grief can change over time. And so, as we read bits of various books and do some reflecting, this is less of a how-to kind of manual or reflection, and more of a chance to notice what's going on and to give ourselves permission. I am at home. I've been saying, and will keep saying for a little while, that because of the need to wear masks in public places, and because of the difficulty in making sure that people can understand me with the mask on, I have decided to record at home where I don't need to wear a mask. Also because it's just me doing this. So you may see my cats. You can see my Christmas tree. But I invite you in this time, as we gather together, to find a comfortable spot in your seat. Get around you what you need, maybe Kleenex or maybe a glass of water. You might want a journal or a notebook. Expression is a very important part of healing through grief. And so for some people, journaling is a very good way to do that. If not journaling, maybe you will want to take some notes or jot some ideas. I had said that we were working through a book called How Do I Get Through the Holidays? Holidays can be particularly difficult times in grief. This is Talia, my cat Talia. Holidays can be particularly difficult for a lot of reasons, partly some of the reasons that we'll read about today. There's a book by Jim Miller called How Do I Get Through the Holidays? That we've been reading through. That book is in the chapel foyer in the spiritual care library at Timbercrest. You are welcome to take a copy if you'd like, or borrow it and bring it back, or take it and pass it on. It's one of the ones that we have multiple copies of. So you are more than welcome to use that book. And we will return to that next week. This week, however, what we're going to do is a book called On Grief and Grieving. It's probably a book you've heard about. It's by Elizabeth Kubler Ross, who wrote the book On Death and Dying. And there are two sections that we'll read if we have time for them. One is on the holidays, and one is called Angels. Pardon me. I'm a froggy throat today. Oh, I lost my train of thought. What we do, if you haven't been part of this group before, what we do is we do a little bit of reading, and then I give a little bit of time for silence, for either silent reflection or for a written reflection. And often I'll give you a question to think about during that time. But as we begin, I invite you to take a few deep breaths and settle into your seat, like Tally's doing. And notice where you are in your grief journey today, right now. If it's not too big of a question for today, think about where your grief journey has taken you in the last week. What does that look like the past week? If that is too much of a question, just today. Where are you at today? Where are you at right now? We'll begin reading with a section called Angels on Grief and Grief. A woman in her early 40s lay in her hospital bed with her husband by her side. They both looked up as a hospital chaplain entered the room. They talked for a while about her cancer and the possible treatments. Since her cancer was advanced, she had very few treatments to choose from. She looked at her husband and then over at the chaplain and said in a very matter-of-fact tone, "Last night I saw angels. I never saw angels before." The chaplain asked, "What were they like?" "Oh, they were so beautiful," she said with sparkling eyes. She looked at her husband, who did not look reassured by her vision. "Don't worry," she said. "They'll be there for you when the time comes. They will comfort you." The chaplain ran into her physician outside the room and asked how she was doing medically. Her physician discussed her limited options, but said there was an experimental treatment that might give her some additional time. When the doctor asked the chaplain how his visit went, the man replied, "She saw angels." The doctor looked down. "That's never a good sign," he told the chaplain. "Yes," the chaplain said, "not medically, but spiritually, it's perfect." When the woman died, those words, "they will comfort you," were like a cushion for her husband's grief. He confided in a close friend, "I can't describe it, and I don't want people to think I am crazy, but I can feel it. The moment she died, I knew she was all right, and I have felt watched over ever since that moment." Some people have strong beliefs in angels, guardian angels, while others hope they exist. We speak of them in many forms in our culture: the angel of death, the angels we pray to for help and comfort. Sometimes they are just a part of our God and the heavens. We ask them to be gentle as they take our loved one. We ask them to watch over us. We ask them to meet our loved ones on the other side. Many times we just ask for their help. It is unnecessary to debate the reality of angels. They are beyond an entity that can be proved or disproved. After a loved one's death, we often ponder the idea of them for the first time in our life. They give us hope and they comfort us. They are part of a religious and spiritual belief system that many hold dear. As much as people like to think of angels as New Age, interpretations of them and references to them go back to the book of Genesis. As God describes his creations, he uses the word I. Then at one point he says, "we." Many interpret this to mean angels of God were there before creation. I'm going to stop there for just a moment. This is a longer chapter, so we'll do it differently than we normally do. We'll stop more often for a shorter period of time. Have you had a time when you have felt angels, or you've had somebody tell you about angels, or you yourself have seen or dreamed about angels? As a chaplain, many people, many people say to me, now I don't want you to think I'm crazy, but I had this vision, or I saw these angels, or I felt this presence, or I had this clear sense that this person or this being was with me. You all may not talk to each other about those things, but you talk to your chaplains about them and your pastors about them. So yes, it's a thing that happens. It's okay if it hasn't happened for you. But if it has, that's okay too. Continuing in the book. Many believe you cannot die alone, that angels are always present. Young children often refer to angels as their playmates. They have been called everything from guides to spooks because they can be scary if you aren't expecting them. It is not important what label we give them, but it is important to understand that many cultures believe that from the moment of birth to the end of physical existence, we are in the presence of angels who are there to help us with our last breath. They will wait till the end of our physical existence and help us transition to our purely spiritual existence. They will be there for those we leave behind. And just as you cannot die alone, you cannot grieve alone. While many think of angels as visions of cherubs from heaven, they also appear in physical form through us and in us. Those dying and those who have experienced a deep grief will talk about how a friend was an angel for coming over at just the right moment. Two sisters who were not close through the years were drawn together by the loss of one of their husbands. The other sister told her grief-stricken sibling, "We would love for you to move in with us for a while." The widow told friends years later, "I didn't stay long, but when she gave me a place in the world when I felt so lost, I realized my sister was truly an angel." And are there ways that you have been an angel for others? Maybe ways that you're being called to be an angel for others. We need to know that as the physical form of our loved one leaves, something beyond them lingers and comforts us, something beyond our ability to describe or substantiate. Grieving people sometimes say, "In my darkest days, I must have been carried by angels." They may feel it was their loved one, still comforting them from a world beyond their sight. Others think angels were sent by God to reassure them that they were not alone. Your loved one still exists. On the long road you now walk alone, you have unseen companions. In our work with the grieving, people are very grateful for help. We, like many others, have both felt awkward at times when someone talks about something we said in an exchange about grief and says it changed his or her life. Our awkwardness comes from our not remembering those life-changing moments. Whenever anyone does a pure and angelic deed for others, that person is usually unaware of it. In the classic Frank Capra movie, It's a Wonderful Life, an angel shows a man how much his simple yet kind deeds have done for others, and what a tragedy it would be if he had never been born. The subplot of the movie concerns the angels getting his wings for helping Jimmy Stewart's character, But the real story is that the man had never been aware of how the moments of his life had truly been angelic to others. We all have angelic moments that we give to each other. They appear as simple acts of kindness, which may seem not to matter that much, but they save lives by lifting others from sadness. I'm going to shift here for a moment. Pardon me. While angels watch us, we are capable of being each other's angels. In deep grief, we may wonder, where are my angels? While we miss all the angelic people around us. We may not be seeing or feeling all the love they bring. We may not understand that they are indeed our angels when a friend or even a perfect stranger says just the right thing at the right time. Elliot was enjoying golfing in his retirement. One day he had a heart attack on the green and died. His wife Connie was devastated that her beloved husband died without her in the emptiness of a golf course. I just wish I knew he was okay when he died. I knew he loved golf, but I wonder how he would feel about the green as a place to die. 11 months later, Connie was overwhelmed with the task of doing her taxes. She picked up the phone and called the tax person from her husband's address book. Before she could go into an explanation of her husband's death, the tax person told her, "Your husband said you are so good with money, one day you will take over the finances." "He said that about me?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "One day you will get a call that my wife is going to do the taxes this year, and I will be in golf heaven." Not sure if her accountant was consoling her, she asked, "What do you mean by golf heaven?" The puzzled accountant replied, "I guess it means he loved to golf, like going to heaven." He continued, "Let me guess. He is off golfing now?" She broke the news to her accountant that he had died. The man quickly apologized for the conversation, but Connie told him it was fine. She felt in a strange way that this conversation was a message from her husband, that he was okay with his death. Filled with a sense of well-being and self-confidence, Connie took a deep breath and did her taxes. She not only felt that this accountant she had never met was an angel in disguise, but she also felt encouraged by her late husband. The question ultimately may be, what does an angel look like? The answer is different for everyone since we all grieve differently and are comforted differently. For some, a vision of angels will let us know that we'll survive. Or we hear a voice through our sadness that reassures us. It may be the loved ones who gather to comfort us. As in Connie's case, the angel may even be a stranger. If you are expecting to see the movie version of an angel with wings, you will be disappointed. But if you look closer through your grief at the moments of your life, you may see moments that you know for sure were angelic in nature. Angels are the extraordinary coming through the ordinary. We need them more than ever in grief, and they always come to help. Take a little bit of a moment and do your own reflecting or writing, or if there's somebody there with you talking about angels. Who have been your angels? How have angels come to be with you? How do you hope or desire that angels would be with you? Pardon me, goodness. Okay. This next section is on holidays. It may take us over time a little bit. We'll see. I might split it up, or we might just go a little bit over. Holidays. Holidays are time spent with loved ones was imprinted on our psyche from a young age. Every family has its own traditions and unique ways of celebrating holidays. When we grow up, we usually update them and make them our own, but original imprints of how holidays are spent usually transcend generations. Holidays mark the passage of time in our lives. They are part of the milestones we share with each other, and they generally represent time spent with family. They bring meaning to certain days, and we bring much meaning back to them. But since holidays are for being with those we love the most, how on earth can anyone be expected to cope with them when a loved one has died? For many people, this is the hardest part of grieving, when we miss our loved ones even more than usual. How can you celebrate togetherness when there is none? When you have lost someone special, your world loses its celebratory qualities. Holidays only magnify the loss. The sadness feels sadder, and the loneliness goes deeper. The need for support may be the greatest during the holidays. Nevertheless, for some, it makes sense to just ignore the holidays as if they didn't exist. The alternative of just going through the motions without any meaning might seem pointless, the worst loneliness of all. So why not just cancel them for a year? Barry Perkins knew she had to allow her teenage boys the space to grieve when her husband, actor Anthony Perkins, died. After his death, Barry and her sons, like so many other families, tried to carry on. Luckily, Barry was very intuitive and knew when something was not working and that grief needed its space. She said, "Holidays were so important to us as a family, and suddenly there was this huge void. Every holiday is a bombardment, a hole that reminds us that he is not here. We tried to recreate these holidays, and we thought we could carry on doing things the way we had always done. But we learned quickly we couldn't do it the way we had always done it before. Not without Tony. It was just too hard and sad. The first Christmas we kind of glided through because we thought, okay, we are going to do this. The second Christmas we put up the tree, but it took us a week to hang the decorations. We needed time to grieve without trying to have a happy time. We were all so sad. Then we came to a mutual agreement to take a break from Christmas for a couple of years. We decided when we came back to Christmas again, we would start a new tradition. Barry knew to not keep up the pretense of happy holidays when she and her children were grieving. She knew what was right for them, and she taught her children to honor their feelings. After a break and some healing time, Barry and her family were able to celebrate the holidays again. Not the way they had before, but in new ways. Barry Perkins was a wise woman, and it was a terrible twist of fate that she died in one of the hijacked airplanes on 9/11. Hopefully, the grief lessons she gave to her sons helped them through their second tragedy. For others in grief, staying involved with the holidays is a symbol of life continuing. For them, celebrating the holidays creates a time to be with other loved ones and not to feel so alone. It is a time for some to find meaning and to reflect upon all that has been lost. Many find it difficult not to observe the holiday, but don't want to pretend. You can integrate the loss into the holiday by giving it a time and a place. Perhaps the prayer before dinner includes your loved one. Maybe you light a candle for her. A simple gesture of recognizing your loved one can reflect the continued presence in your heart. Some elect to leave the festivities early to have some time alone with their loss. Making time for your loss and acknowledging it is often easier than resisting it. So a question here is, if this is not your first holiday without your loved one, What has been helpful in the past? How have you found to celebrate the holidays or not, to give yourself space? And likewise, what is it that hasn't felt so good in the past? If this is your first holiday without your loved one, what are the things that are going to be hard, and what are the things that you think might be able to help you get through, specifically holidays? Continuing on in the book. Sometimes our loved one's death is linked to a certain holiday. We remember they died before Valentine's Day or on Mother's or Father's Day. We never forget that they died right after Easter, or that was their last Passover. Maybe they died near the 4th of July. From then on, the holidays will never be the same. Since the holidays are markers, even if your loved one didn't die near one, you still look back and think, that was their last Thanksgiving or last Christmas. Some knew it would be their last holiday, and some didn't. Either way, a formerly joyous holiday becomes a time of sorrow. 16-year-old Amy went into her mother's room on New Year's Eve. Her mother had been dealing with kidney disease for many years, and Amy wished her a happy new year. Then Amy whispered in her ear, "This will be the year you get a transplant." The mother died 4 days later. Had she lived, Amy might or might not have thought of her mother every New Year's. But in that moment, her death and that holiday became forever linked. The holidays are a time to review your traditions and decide what you want to do. For some, the changes they experience during the holidays are temporary, whereas for others, they're permanent. Marie always sent out cards with a picture of her husband and herself from their most recent vacation. After he died, she did not want to carry on that tradition. In fact, when she examined it more closely, she realized it was not a part of the holiday she enjoyed. It had begun as a fun thing to do years ago, but in truth, it had lost its fun way before her husband died. For Marie, grief provided the opportunity to release traditions that may have lost their meaning anyway. For others, it can be a time of complete reorganization. Joyce, a teacher in her early 50s, said that after she lost her husband, she started out by lying low during the holidays. I decided, she said, that grief gave me the permission to really evaluate what parts of the holidays I enjoyed and what parts I didn't. If I was going to rebuild the holidays, I knew the old way was not an option. Probably for the first time, I took the time to make them personal. There is no right or wrong way to handle the holidays in grief. You have to decide what is right for you and do it. You have every right to change your mind, even a few times. Friends and family members may not have a clue how to help you through the holidays, and you may not either. If you do know, give the people around you clear messages. For instance, you can tell them, "This year I don't want the responsibility of cooking the family dinner." Or you may find it important that you continue to do that. Just tell people. Let them know you want to talk about your loved one, or let them know you are just too raw and don't want to. Don't be afraid to change things to suit your needs. People feel very pulled to do things they often don't want to do during the holidays, and this is your chance to make your needs known. So, this is a good question for this time. It's always a good question, but um, if you have a sense of what you need, is there somebody, are there people that you can practice telling, or people who can help you um, find ways to meet those needs? It's harder if you don't have a sense of what you need. but that's okay too. And in fact, sometimes that's even good to say to your loved ones, to just say, I may need things along the way. I don't right now know what they are. And I often say it, but here you have again another reminder that you have all kinds of permission, and you need to give yourself all kinds of permission to do what you need to do in the midst of grief. We're at 30 minutes, but I'm going to go ahead and finish this chapter. We'll do one more little reflection time. Many people have had too much change and need the familiarity of the seasons. Bill felt that his wife had enough Christmas spirit for both of them, but after she died, there was not enough Christmas spirit left for one. He felt that any attempt would only make him feel worse, so he used the holidays to travel to Alaska. I needed a change of environment, he said. I'd always wanted to see Alaska, and I felt I could manage exploring a new place, while I could not have managed Christmas and New Year's without my wife at home. It is very natural to feel you may never enjoy the holidays again. They will certainly never be the same as they were. However, in time, most people are able to find meaning again in the traditions as a new form of the holiday spirit grows inside of them. When death occurs before it, a holiday can remain unfinished. Gina's mother had the family gifts under the Christmas tree when the call came to Gina on December 22nd. Her mother had suffered a massive stroke and she died 2 weeks later. The Christmas tree and presents sat untouched by the family like a deserted town. After New Year's, the family solemnly opened up their gifts for each other, but no one knew what to do about her mother's gifts, so they just sat there. During January, Gina helped her father pack up her mother's belongings and put her remaining affairs in order, but she would not allow the tree or gifts to be touched. Christmas was frozen in time for me, she said. Opening the gifts would be too hard, and I had no idea what to do with my gifts to my mother. She took down the tree at the end of January and left the presents in the corner. She and her father agreed that they were starting to look like an unmarked grave and felt that way too. Her dad helped her pack up the boxes and put them in a closet. The following Christmas, when Gina was out of shock and ready to receive the gifts from her mother, one by one she opened them and felt her mother's presence as well as her presence. Her father opened the gifts that were intended for his wife and commented on how she would have loved them. Even if you decide not to do the holiday after a loved one's death, they are hard to ignore. Everyone around may wish you happy holidays without any idea that you are grieving, since the holidays continue despite your deep sadness. You continue on with your loved one's loud absence. We are often acutely aware of the Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Hanukkah season, but we forget how hard Mother's Day might be without a mother, or how empty Father's Day may feel without a father. You will never have another mother or father again, and you may feel completely left out of this holiday, unlike the others. People find ways to remember their mothers and fathers and honor them long after they are gone. Some honor them by becoming mothers and fathers. Some do it with a simple, kind thought of love. That is the uniqueness of the loss of a parent. Rob and Cindy were unable to celebrate the holidays after their 17-year-old son died. They understood that for the next few years the holidays would be unfixable, so they decided to spend the time serving others. On Thanksgiving, they went to the local homeless shelter and served dinner. On Christmas, they helped wrap presents for local foster homes. In the end, their actions served more than they had expected, because it took their minds off the intensity of their loss and helped them see that they were not alone in their pain and misfortune. Holidays are clearly some of the roughest terrain we navigate after a loss. The ways we handle them are as individual as we are. What is vitally important is that we be present for the loss in whatever form the holidays do or don't take. These holidays are part of the journey to be felt fully. They are usually very sad, but sometimes we may catch ourselves doing okay, and we may even have a brief moment of laughter. Whatever you experience, just remember that sadness is allowed because death, as they say, doesn't take a holiday. Even without grief, our friends and relatives often think they know how our holidays should look, what the family should and shouldn't do. Now, more than ever, be gentle with yourself and protect yourself. Don't do more than you want, and don't do anything that does not serve your soul and your loss. So we won't reflect on it now, but maybe this is a thing to reflect on in the coming week. Similar to what we reflected on last week, what are the ways in which you want to say yes to the holiday in the midst of the grief? And what are the ways in which you want to or need to say no to particular parts of the holiday? And how can you do that? Particularly, I often remind us um, three things in grief. One is connect um, to people who've experienced grief before, especially. Um, they will understand. And perhaps um, some of you will help each other find answers to these questions. There are many of you out there. The other thing I always say is find a way to express these things that are within you. I think music is a really good expression, and this is a good time of year for music. But find a way to express it: writing, speaking, art, however it is. And the third thing is take care of yourself. Take care of each other too, but particularly take care of your physical body in the midst of your emotional and spiritual experience of grief. It's hard on your physical body, so do take care of yourself. These are all things that I think can be especially needed for anybody during the holidays, but also especially for folks in grief. As you transition into what's ahead in your day, I invite you to notice what your body needs, notice what your spirit needs, and give it that. And we will come together again next week. I'm making these public, so you, friends and family, whoever, can return to these recordings. If you're not able to see it on channel 2 regularly, continue finding us on YouTube. I will do it live sometimes, or you'll be able to find the video when you look for it at the appropriate time. Okay. You have my prayers, and as always, if you need to talk or if you want a prayer or just come find me, give me a call. My extension is 3938. We'll make some time. We'll find some time. All right. Take care. Talia and I say goodbye. Okay, you did it. Up, up, up.